200 people crammed into Islington Baptist Church. Resident after resident spoke up about illegal street prostitution.
We are sick of finding condoms, needles, faeces on the footpath.
On night time when we all go to bed, they end up coming into our yard.
Somewhere where it's away from people.
This sex worker hit back.
I don't work out here to support a drug habit. I work out here because I've got kids. No one will give me a chance because I am an ex-drug addict.
For many, she said, working as a prostitute is a way of survival.
I've run into girls out here that have never used drugs in their life, but have been left with no choice because of the way the income is these days.
Residents demanded ongoing police operations, street closures and the establishment of another red light district away from homes to curb the problem. Superintendent Max Mitchell promised to fulfil at least one of those requests.
I'm more than satisfied to bring in an element of zero tolerance policing. However, and this is the most important issue, it's a short-term solution.
Jodie McKay said the state would conduct a safety audit to identify what needs to change for a long-term solution.
There has been a number of attempts over the past 20 years to deal with this issue, and it remains.
The Lord Mayor will raise the issue in Council tonight.
Now's the time that the whole of the Council needs to come on board and understand the sorts of things that we can do.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
KidSafe's mission is normally to prevent children from ending up here, but in a bid to reduce household accidents, they want to build a special family centre at the John Hunter Hospital.
We know that the work we can do in this safety centre will help bring those numbers down, and so we need to keep pressure on our politicians.
When the Prime Minister brought Cabinet to Newcastle last year, Health Minister Nicola Roxon seemed pretty interested in the project. After hearing little more, Leonie Forsyth received a letter from the government basically saying it's a good idea but there's no spare money in the budget.
Each time that it's been put off, the price has gone up and up and up. And where we could have built a centre for less than $1 million, we're now looking at about $1.5 million.
So far, they've got $200,000 in the bank from fundraising. They're now appealing for money through the federal government's Infrastructure Australia Fund, which is meant to go towards projects that benefit the community. Penny Evans, NBN News.
There's about 30 different types of mosquitoes in the Hunter, and thanks to heavy rain followed by humid days, their numbers are booming. For the next 3 weeks, we're being warned to cover up to avoid getting bitten and possibly infected.
So it's critically important that people take measures to protect themselves, or otherwise we will have many more victims of Barmah Forest virus and Ross River virus.
There's no vaccination for either illness, and symptoms are serious.
Both of them present with a flu-like illness initially, but it can be really incapacitating. There may be a skin rash, the high fevers, the headache, muscle aches, but it's the joint pain that keeps people in bed.
In March each year, there's a spike in cases, and already people are suffering.
We've certainly had human cases of both Ross River and Barmah Forest virus, and mosquitoes have also been captured that have been infected.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
This Hamilton home is putting power back into the electricity grid through 1 kilowatt solar panels installed on the roof. During the day, you can literally watch the meter go backwards, as long as most household appliances are turned off. It's part of Newcastle's Going Solar, a volunteer project helping to reduce the cost of solar for the average household.
We've had over 300 people actually sign up and they're awaiting installations. Some people have actually had their installations happen, so it's been hugely successful.
Government rebates mean eligible families can install the panels through Climate Action Newcastle from a base price of $1,400, although changes to the rebate at the end of this financial year could change everything.
We've done some numbers on it and it's going to raise the price of solar panels for you and me by at least a few $1,000s. So it's going to get less affordable as of July 1 this year, which is unfortunate.
3 information sessions are being organised from next month. Penny Evans, NBN News.
Always baring its teeth, the grey nurse is a menacing sight. It's also a rare one.
It's threatened along the coast of New South Wales. Its numbers are drastically reduced compared to historical levels.
In 2006, scientists from the Port Stephens Fisheries Institute set out to trial an artificial shark uterus, implanting embryos from a wobbegong inside this machine. Last September, the pups emerged healthy and are still going strong.
This is not only novel in terms of New South Wales, it's novel for Australia and the world, in fact.
A result achieved in crumbling and outdated facilities, which are being replaced with a new laboratory due to be opened in July. It will include a shark nursery with 4 artificial uteruses, technology which could be used to boost grey nurse numbers.
Hopefully it will be very useful in helping the grey nurse shark to survive, as well as potentially having a breeding system for those sharks for use for aquariums around the world.
As carnivores, grey nurse babies eat each other in the womb, with an adult female producing just 2 pups every 2 years. 23 grey nurse sharks remain in captivity across the country, and less than 1,000 are estimated to be off the east coast.
If we can crack the dynamics of the grey nurse shark, incidentally it will lead to significant interest worldwide because it will be a first.
Adam McIlroy, News.
It's been a year to the day since the Jets beat the Mariners in the grand final. 12 months on and it's a vastly different squad, but the same 1-0 scoreline. New signing and former Mariner Sasho Petrovski did the damage in front of goal.
We've still got a lot of work to do. We can't get ahead of ourselves. It was a good test today because we're playing against another A-League side that's in the ACL.
Another new signing, Nikolai Topor-Stanley, also impressed the boss.
Oh, Nikolai was excellent. There was one time there I think Lubo got caught out, and next thing you know, Nikolai was over there fairly quick. He's very agile for such a big guy, gets good elevations, lovely left foot.
The big defender recently missed out on a contract in Europe before returning to link with the Jets, but received a welcome boost today, named in the Socceroos squad to face Kuwait.
It's good to come back and be called into that game, and hopefully I can work myself into a starting position there.
Ben Kantarovski missed today's game through injury, but was still on a high after being named in Pim Verbeek's national squad.
Just a bit of an honour just to be called up, even to be recognised in the actual Socceroos squad is just an honour in itself, so just really happy.
The 17-year-old won't see game time, but will gain valuable experience.
You know, it's important for him to keep his feet on the ground with it all, but you know, he's obviously doing well for such a young age.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Players and officials packed into Newcastle's Leagues Club for this afternoon's draw, which produced some interesting results. Isaac de Gois drew Nelson Bay, a place he's never been. Adam McDougall drew Souths, whose club is across the road from his house. Ben Cross will represent Kurri Kurri, while Chris Houston got the all-important role at Maitland. The Pumpkin Pickers aren't expecting miracles this season, simply hoping to enhance their youth program. The club hopes their guest nights will go a long way to rebuilding community support.
The opportunity to have high-profile players as part of our playing roster part of our promotional arm is too good to believe, and we're genuinely excited.
First grade hopeful Joel Edwards returns to Cessnock, the club he represented as a junior. He says there are mixed emotions among the players. Some believe it's a big step down, but Edwards is looking forward to reuniting with old teammates while still hoping to make the top squad in the NRL.
Being realistic, there's a lot of good players and great players in front of me, so I'm just biding my time, learning off them, getting as much experience as possible.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Well, it was lovely to meet you. Yes. Good luck.
The gates at the Cessnock factory were locked today. Workers encouraged not to speak to us. Only a month ago, management told them work was being brought back here from China because of production delays. It's come as a shock to the local member whose own mum worked at the factory in years gone by.
83 jobs in Cessnock is going to hurt, and quite frankly it's a bit disappointing the way the company's handled this.
A flow-on effect of potentially 200 jobs, so in essence it's really going to have a significant impact on the Hunter region.
The state government is offering retraining and may even buy the site in a bid to keep manufacturing jobs in the town.
There's a lot of women there that aren't married, older women, they will find it hard.
Why will they find it so difficult, do you think?
I don't think there's a lot of work around Cessnock for the age bracket.
Bonds has been in Cessnock since 1947 and by the 1970s employed more than 400 locals. According to the company website, this factory produces about 18,000 garments a day, including some of the brand's most iconic products like cottontails and ladies' briefs.
Bonds cottontails are Cessnock, and they're made at Cessnock.
Penny Evans, NBN News. The quality of the Newcastle offering combined with the lower Aussie dollar has protected the sale from much of the gloom on the global market. But even though the prices are stronger than Sydney or Melbourne, they're still a long way from the 2008 highs.
A lot of the wool has still mainly gone to the Chinese domestic market. The Italians were a little bit active in the real top end of the market, but nowhere near the strength they have been back sort of September last year.
40% of this week's 17,200 bales are superfine wool from the New England, with the balance from the Upper Hunter and Northwest Slopes and Plains.
Some of the Northwest Slopes and Plains wools are carrying a bit more vegetable fault because of the high summer rain they had this year, but they're well grown and good tensile strength.
Many growers held over their wool until this sale in the hope the market would improve over Christmas. And while they've made a few gains, the low clearance rate shows they couldn't afford to hold off any longer.
We only passed in 6% yesterday, so on relatively terms and compared to some of the passing rates we've had previously and also in Sydney have been double that. So majority of the growers yesterday have met the market.
The next local sale is in September. It's expected to take at least that long for the market to recover.
Sightings of seals, dolphins and even sunfish are becoming more prevalent in Lake Macquarie as the waterway's health improves. But some ecosystems around Araring Power Station are still struggling. Today, the company announced $300,000 for scientific studies to find out just what impacts the station is having on the local environment.
I don't have an exact figure at the moment, but that's what the studies will endeavour to give us, is an exact baseline of the impact that the station is having on the lake's aquatic life.
In particular, the studies will focus on sea turtles, which are routinely swept into this canal at Dora Creek. Araring Energy says around 70 threatened green turtles have been discovered in the canal since the early 1990s, although the company claims not to know how many were found dead. Dr. Mark Simpson, who has conducted autopsies on many of the turtles, says the canal is a death trap.
I think once they get in there, whether they're sick or not, it's pretty much a one-way trip. The rapid flow of water in there and the constant way they've got to swim means that these turtles are unlikely to get out, and I think most of them end up drowning.
Lake Macquarie Mayor Greg Piper wants the company to fund any and all of the study's recommendations. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Lord Mayor, businessman, actor.
This was for the Knights, this is to promote the city, and more than willing to be able to participate.
He certainly was. This television commercial is the first of 3 in which a revved up Councillor Tate tackles a Tigers fan in Civic Park.
And John, was that you making that tackle?
Absolutely.
You be the judge when the campaign begins next week. A call to arms to get more people at Knights games, and the NRL club back in the black, still recovering from a disappointing 2007.
Ticketed memberships, which we're calling a Defender program this season, is vitally important for us. We're really shooting to get it up to 6,000. We got to about 5,500 last year.
The Knights have also enlisted NBN's Mike Rabbit and surfing legend Mark Richards. Just the one player, Kurt Gidley, features.
We're trying to recognise that it's the people behind the fence that really make our business.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. A keen fisherman, Paul Flaherty, is also a freelance cameraman, and on Monday night he landed the biggest catch of them all, using his mobile phone camera.
Was cruising south, 7:30, right when they say you shouldn't swim. Yeah, he was there looking around.
He being what Paul and his 2 fishing mates believe was a 3-metre hammerhead.
Flash, what's it going to do to the boat, man?
He actually sized us up a couple of times, came back and had a look, and he came straight at the boat and saw us and went, oh, and just went under and turned, and then we chased him.
Retired trawler fisherman Neil Coulter spent most of his 50-year career on the lake, and while acknowledging sharks are there, the trick is actually seeing them.
I've had hauling nets for a lot of years and never heard of anyone catching too many. Odd one, but not many.
Marine experts say it's not uncommon for sharks to be in the lake. One reason is to breed, the other being the most likely explanation in this case.
There's plenty of bait fishing in at the moment. There's a heap of tailor, small tailor, and lots of bait fish. So, I mean, he's just having a feed, and he knew where he was going to. He just kept heading south.
So as long as the bait fish sticks around, the challenge for anglers is to catch their dinner before he does. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
If there was ever a place likely to breed another world champion, it's the Reid family property at Sawyers Gully. Complete with a supercross track designed and built by Chad and his team, this is where 14-year-old Jake Vella learns the tricks of the trade.
We used to just drive past me oh, that's awesome, but then just coming here, it's one of the best tracks in the world, and just to get to ride it, it's awesome.
Jake grew up riding at Budgewoi, but 4 years ago his father realised his talent needed room to grow, so they moved to the Hunter. Mark Reid spotted Vella's aggression at a local meeting and offered to coach him. A bond quickly formed.
He's come from nowhere and he's a no one, and I like the challenge.
It's really good. It gives you a lot of motivation, and just when you get to the races you just feel so much better.
It's already proving a successful partnership. The teenager leads the State 250 Motocross Championship, finishing second at Lithgow on the weekend despite using a bike he'd never ridden. Jake will compete for a place on the Australian team at qualifiers in April before hopefully attending the World Titles in New Zealand in August.
Like, all the kids look up at Chad, you know, and everybody wants to be Chad Reid. But not everybody can be, but a bit of luck this one can.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Pacific Brand's announcement that the Cessnock factory will close within 12 months may have come as a surprise to the 83 workers, but not to former employee Robin McDonald, who now works at the Hunter Valley Research Foundation.
Really, it was inevitable, given that there are a lot of countries in close proximity to Australia with low wages.
The Hunter's unemployment rate hit 6% last month, and the situation is worse in Cessnock, which traditionally has more people out of work. Already hovering around 8 or 9%, these latest cuts and the flow on to other industries could see that figure jump.
It will certainly impact on the economy of Cessnock, and given that things are tight at the moment, there's not a lot of places where there are job openings for these people to go to.
I'm very concerned. It's got a human impact. This economic downturn has really impacted Cessnock in a way that none of us would have thought would have happened.
One of the solutions could be upskilling and retraining. A group of pre-apprenticeship trainees at the Hunter Valley Training Company are currently completing a Donaldson Coal-sponsored program that guarantees them work after 11 weeks training. Hearts of Steel bringing another chapter of the Steel City's history to an end. 250 blokes and a couple of ladies representing the thousands that laboured in the bar mill over the last 40 years.
Today will be an opportunity for people to get together and relive some stories, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of steel made and bent and reformed.
So I've been there nearly, 30 years, and seen some good times, some bad times, and to me this is one of the bad times.
Another long-termer, Brett Richards, thought he'd found a job for life when he was 22. At 50, he watched the final bar being poured last week and was one of the last to leave yesterday.
It was a bit eerie walking out of there and thinking, well, that's it, it's over.
He's worried about the sector's future in the Hunter.
I've seen a lot of last, and I'm hoping that another day they might rebuild that mill or something new and keep the industry going, especially the steel industry, and keep it going in Newcastle.
Given 12 months' notice, it seems much of the anger is gone, and these mates and colleagues are now headed in vastly different directions. 80 transferred within the company, while 120 found work elsewhere or took early retirement.
My future holds fishing and touring. I intend to tour Australia with my lovely wife, so we'll do the grey nomad thing.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
Newcastle at night, images that confront and concern. New figures from the Department of Liquor, Gaming and Racing reveal the rate of alcohol-related violence in the city is well above the state average. But hoteliers tell a different story.
Ask anybody that is out, they will tell you it is improving. It is certainly not like it was 5-10 years ago.
Rolly DeWitt was among the audience today at a talk by HMRI researcher Dr John Wiggers, who's investigating ways of reducing alcohol-related problems. His latest project focuses on the pub's curfew.
The early anecdotal reports of crime rates and emergency department presentations following the intervention in March last year suggest there may well be a drop.
The research team will test that by analysing police and hospital admission data. But Dr Wiggers says the curfew is just part of a much broader solution.
This is a social problem, it's a cultural problem, it's a behavioural problem. By definition, that means there is not one solution to it.
And that is one point on which it seems everyone agrees.
Collectively as a community we can bring about change, a change that we deserve and certainly our young people deserve.
No trace of 16-year-old Gordana Kotevsky has been found since she was abducted on the 24th of November 1994. In 2003, a coronial inquest found Gordana had died, and since then the case has gone cold. But following new leads from the community, police today reactivated her abduction and murder. On the night she was taken, police believe Gordana walked through Charlestown Square, then cut through the Hilltop Plaza before crossing Charlestown Road and walking north along Powell Street, where she was forced into a white Hilux ute. This afternoon, officers revealed they have 2 suspects in their sights and new evidence.
I'm now at liberty to inform that there was a partial fingerprint found on that bag.
Advancements in forensic technology mean the print can now be tested for DNA. Police believe they've also uncovered new crime scenes.
I can disclose there will be other scenes also searched.
Investigators also revealed that they believe the abduction was premeditated, that the 2 men were locals and possibly knew Gordana, and that they still live somewhere in Newcastle. Gordana's mother received the news with mixed emotions.
I have to be prepared for the worst, of course, after all these years, but we'll just take it one step at a time.
But reliving the ordeal soon became too much.
My son was 11 when Gordana went missing. He's 25 years old now.
Detectives are confident after 14 long years, they're making headway.
We're closing the net. I think that's a fair comment, yes.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
All hands on deck at Knights training this morning as players stake a claim for an elusive first-grade spot. Ben Rogers and Isaac de Gois have been cleared to play against the Sharks after suffering injuries last weekend.
We just had blokes go down left, right and centre, so the fact that they've all come through out of that situation really well for us is just take a deep breath and thank God.
But the big question remains just who will partner Jared Mullen in the halves. Rogers gets his chance to impress on Saturday, but Brian Smith says that doesn't mean Luke Walsh and Scott Duro have missed out.
That was always our plan. We thought that Ben would have to wait until the end, and Walsh has done his bit and he's put some runs on the board, so we'll measure that against what happens this weekend.
The return of stars such as Kurt Gidley, Steve Simpson and Adam McDougall means the trial side will be close to the one which lines up against the Titans in round 1. The club captain keen to test out his knee before then.
This is the best week I've had by far. You know, I was a little bit worried about it when I first came back, and it has taken a long time. So it's nice to be back training with the rest of the team and playing this weekend.
The man they call Mad Dog also looking to put a disjointed off-season behind him.
Excited to obviously get a run on Saturday night, and a little bit nervous but excited at the same time.
Really? You're nervous?
Oh yeah, I think every player, first game of the year is a little bit nervous.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. She's been in the Australian side for several years, but the Hunters' Sarah Andrews was no certainty to be named in the World Cup team, making today's presentation even more special. In contrast, fellow Hunter product Leah Poulton is an established member of the first 11, who's looking forward to the 4-day camp in Canberra in the lead-up to the Cup.
It's just good to sort of get together after we've had the week off and sort of get all our thoughts and ideas in together and practice the things that we want to put into place for the World Cup. So it's very important in our preparation to be here this week.
A recent series against New Zealand provided an ideal warm-up. Along with India and England, the Kiwis are rated our strongest competition.
They're a very good side, probably one of our main competitions for the World Cup. So that tour that we had to New Zealand was very important for us, and I think we're pretty well placed now to just get out there and play some good cricket for the Cup.
But the coach won't let his players take any side lightly.
Everyone's a threat in World Cup
format, you've got to make sure you win all your games, so you've got to be ready every day.
Australia plays its first game in Sydney on March 8 before they face South Africa in Newcastle on March 10. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Today's news was the ultimate slap in the face for these Cessnock workers.
I think our major management is pathetic. You lose 1,800 jobs and she gives herself a pay rise? Tell us that satisfaction.
Very greedy. I'm going to lose my house maybe because of that.
I can't buy a house now that I was planning to buy at the end of the year. I've just lost both incomes from this one place.
They rallied outside the company's bonds factory, expressing their views to the federal member for the Hunter, who was quick to sympathise.
Well, it's very un-Australian for a company to cut from Australia, and in doing so put so many people out of work while at the same time granting themselves what are obscene executive pay rises.
He offered workers support.
Please contact my office if you think there's anything you need, any way we can assist.
Opposition leader Malcolm Turnbull was also in Cessnock. He too condemned Pacific Brands' actions.
It's a poor decision by Pacific Brands. You've got to say that. They know they're going to take a hit in terms of their public image.
But for workers, it's all just too little, too late.
There's lots of people here that are going to lose homes, financially struggle. We've all got little children, and I think it is terrible.
I got 2 kids, I got 2 mouths to feed.
They called a meeting and told us we're making all this money and all our jobs are safe.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
There's no doubting the global financial crisis is hurting the GPT Group. Its shares have hit record lows in recent weeks, and now management has told shareholders all projects not already underway will be temporarily put on the shelf. This includes the $500 million overhaul of the Hunter Street Mall and surrounding streets.
Initially, we were forecasting commencing construction around 2010. At this stage, it's likely that the project would be delayed by at least a couple of years.
Mark Fuchs says while the development is also dependent on local issues, including the rail line debate being resolved, the global squeeze is the main hitch. The Hunter Business Chamber believes today's announcement doesn't really change anything.
GPT have made a $100 million investment in Newcastle. They're not going to walk away from that tomorrow.
Meanwhile, shareholders were told the Charlestown Square redevelopment is on track to be completed late next year, with strong interest in retail leases. Penny Evans, NBN News.
It's from the air you get an idea of progress on the city's third coal loader. Work began around April last year. It's now 50% complete, with construction well underway on loader berths, the site's rail system and a rail dump station. The first shipment of coal is due to leave the loader in 2010.
Hopefully that'll be in the early part of the year where we'll start commissioning and then progressively through the year ramp up to where by the end of 2010 we'll be at full capacity.
All up $1 billion is being pumped into the project, a significant amount of that back into Hunter businesses at a time when it's needed most. The facility can handle 30 million tonnes a year, bringing the port's annual throughput to 150 million tonnes annually.
There's another stage for NCIG and there's also other stages for PWCS, which ultimately can take the port capacity up to beyond 200 million tonnes.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Isolated at first by sections of the league community, Brian Smith always maintained the player clean-out of 07 was part of a much bigger picture, and for the next 2 seasons at least, he remains in the frame.
Any coach who's been a part of that will understand. Anybody who's in business or got a family or whatever, you like to see all the hard work that you put in. You like to be there when the good bits come round. And should he prove the gun coach the club expects him to be, Smith could be calling Newcastle home for many years to come.
We've certainly got criteria in there that does trigger further extensions of the contract. I'm hopeful that he will trigger those. I'm confident that he will.
Even if he doesn't, the Knights say they have the option to extend beyond 2010 anyway.
I think it's got to be seen as a vote of confidence in Brian Smith and his ability.
The challenge now? To produce results with the team he's selected, even touting a top 4 finish, and what a turnaround that'd be.
I wouldn't rule anything out at all this year. I'm very confident that we're going to be a tough team to beat, both at home and away.
The Knights also secured the services of Defence Minister Joel Fitzgibbon this afternoon as club patron. Adam McKilrick, NBN News. Dropping its MotoGP team because of the world economic crisis, Kawasaki will now concentrate on the superbikes, and so is Brock Parks after a 6-year absence.
I've been really enjoying it, you know. I like the big bike, and this morning we put in the top 10, and I don't think Kawasaki's done that for a while, so it's going to plan at the moment, and we'll see what happens.
The 27-year-old has made the step up from the Supersport Series, the category he crashed in while competing at Phillip Island last year. Back for another go, it remains a happy homecoming so far.
I've been in Qatar for the last few years, and to have first round here, the hype's much better, and you know, I think that makes it a little bit different for a rider too, so I'm looking forward to it.
So is countryman Troy Corser, who aboard his BMW was the fastest Aussie in this afternoon's provisional qualifying, finishing 16th.
No expectations this weekend, you know, really just happy to be here.
We wonder if Britain's Tommy Hill feels the same after this fiery finish to practice this morning. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. Despite the embarrassment of this afternoon's relay final, Redheads board riders remain in the mix for individual honours, 2001 state title winner Tim Foran among them, while Sydney siders will provide the challenge.
Tommy Atkinson from Queenscliff, there's a couple of blokes from Cronulla as well, so we'll wait and see how it turns out over the weekend.
The conditions will suit me, so I hope for flat water all year, and that's what I got, so it should be good.
The carnival continues tomorrow with most finals set down for Sunday. Time for a lift now. It's anything goes at the showground, and this afternoon Newcastle's Chad Powers tested the makeshift jump, a feature for the freestylers in tomorrow night's Freestyle Sports Show. It will be about the same time Hunter runners Keith Sheehy, Pirani Steinert and Laura Whaler will be at the Sydney Track Classic. All from the Tony Fairweather stable, the trio has nothing but national relay spots in mind, out to make the Melbourne Grand Prix next week and ultimately qualify for the August World Titles in Berlin. Adam McIlrick, NBN News. If it's not Felice, it's closing down. Shopfront signage shows the sorry state of Hunter Street Mall, and for those who remain, it's a situation which becomes more desperate by the day.
We'll try and stay as long as we can, depends on what the crowd's like, you know. If they go off, you got to go.
GPT's decision to postpone the mall redevelopment because it simply can't afford it means drawcard David Jones will leave next year, while others have been made to move on.
They wouldn't renew our lease there, so we had to find alternative premises, and we were dead set against leaving the CBD of Newcastle.
That show of faith has seen David McElwain shift to the East End, signing a 35-year lease and no longer a tenant of GPT. For those who are locked into contracts, they wouldn't comment on camera, fearing a backlash for criticising the developer. In a bitter twist for those who've left the mall because of the high rent GPT was asking, some of their old shops are now being rented for just $20 per week. It's a program called Renew Newcastle, giving creative types a springboard to enter the marketplace, made possible by GPT.
Hopefully I'll be a commercial tenant. That's sort of the aim of having this, is that eventually I'll be able to support myself and rent it as a normal tenant.
And that's what the mall needs more of, and fast. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
In third position at the moment, Brock Parks, 16th place at the moment on the Kawasaki. News came through just yesterday. The Kawasaki, they'd originally, just keep it within the lines, Brox. They'd originally pulled out of the MotoGP project. They will be back next year. The Green Machine, Marco Melandri on board, just the one rider. Bit of a wheelie from Brock Parks as he tries to get the hammer down before getting himself a hot lap. He's 3 seconds over it at the moment. What can the Kawasaki do? He's just got on board at the moment, has Brock Parks. He's really just getting used to this machine. A pretty good effort to get himself qualified in the top.
What a day for the beach, but there was no rest and relaxation at Blacksmiths on day 2 of the State Surf Lifesaving Championships. Today featured many heats and semi-finals in the lead up to the big finals day tomorrow. But there were still several medals dished out today. Terrigal's under-19s girls were a happy bunch after claiming the surf team's event. While in the under-17s boys surf ski final, Redhead's Daniel Booth had no luck in running in the decider. Yet he still managed to finish 4th. In the 17s girls, Barack Warilla finished 1-3 and their reaction said it all. Basketball, and with the ABA season only weeks away, many teams from across the state are in Newcastle for the Hunters' traditional warm-up event. The hosts' men's side taking on rivals Maitland in their opening match, and in a great comeback, they downed the Mustangs 64-63.
Despite the global economic crisis, a record number of lifesavers have travelled to the Hunter for the 2009 state titles.
Certainly we've noticed this year that the competitors haven't travelled as much to a number of the carnivals, but this is state championship time.
More than 8,000 surf athletes have taken to the sand and surf at Blacksmiths Beach over the past 2 weeks. The amount of visitors to the region almost triples when friends and relatives are included.
It's a massive economic injection into the economy here because people obviously are staying in the area and they're spending their money in the area as well.
The Swansea Belmont Club will host the event again next year, and according to Lake Macquarie Mayor Greg Piper, local businesses have club members to thank for making them millions of dollars.
We put some money into it, we do put some logistics into it, but the volunteer effort here is absolutely huge and it couldn't happen without them, and we wouldn't have got the titles here if it wasn't for this local club.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. At times, today's clean-up at the Belmont Wetlands State Park looked like child's play. But clearly this is no laughing matter. Around 50 volunteers spent the morning trekking through sand dunes to collect several tonnes of rubbish. Most of this land is only accessible in a four-wheel drive, proving litterbugs are going to great lengths to break the law.
It's incredible the total lack of concern for the environment that they're showing.
The former BHP site was handed to the state government in 2006. Since then, volunteer groups have been lobbying to have the park properly protected. This is the first time a clean-up has been carried out, but working group Friends of the Wetlands is now planning to meet here every Tuesday.
We'll have organised horticulturalists and landscape regen people to try and rehabilitate this park.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Having watched 3 Sharks players helped from the field, it was a relieved Knights coach post-game with no major injury problems on his front.
Gladly give up a win for making sure your players are okay.
The coach nursing only selection headaches with intriguing battles on several fronts, especially in the halves. Jared Mullen looking every bit the halfback as he set up Newcastle's first points. And with Ben Rogers turning heads at 5/8, there's every chance they'll be the combination for Game 1 on the 15th of March.
I'd just like to calm down and have a look at the video and confirm some things there, but I certainly like what I saw tonight.
In his first game back from shoulder surgery, Matt Hilder played himself into the 17 for season kick-off. Well, last night also gave a few others their first outing this season. Adam McDougall and Kurt Gidley both returned last night, but the latter may have wished for another week off. It was a rusty start for the Knights captain, which ended with several head stitches, but it's the season proper everyone has their eye on.
If we can compete as hard as we did tonight on a regular basis, I'd be pretty confident we'll be there or thereabouts.